Hi guys, and welcome to another batch of your replays. Today I felt like doing light tanks, but it's not just a standard light tank video. There's a couple of reasons I wanted to put this up, but we're going to be starting off with the Type 64. We've got JulleII, or JulleII as I like to call him, but it is actually JulleII in the Type 64. It's the Tier 6 Chinese or Taiwanese premium light tank, and I've spoken about this, I've reviewed this tank. I think it's the best value for money premium tank in the game. That is, if you like light tanks, that is. If you're a good light tank player or like light tanks, I think this is one of the best value premium tanks in the game. And it's one of the few tanks in the game that's actually younger than I am. I'm older than this tank because this tank was developed in 1974. And I've talked about it, as I say, during the review. But essentially, it's an M24 Duster, which is an anti-aircraft vehicle. That's the chassis. And it's a surplus or decommissioned Hellcat turret and a decommissioned Hellcat gun that was built in Taiwan. So yeah, it's an interesting tank. As I say, I've reviewed it. So we've got JulleII here in the Type 64. We're going to follow that up with a game in the T71. Now, it was a complete coincidence because the day I picked out those two replays, it was Monday to put in a video. I picked out the replay from JulleII and then was grinding for the FV4202, and I ended up in this game. Now, JulleII never even said hello to me, but there he is in his T92, so I'm going to say hello, JulleII. Have a 90mm shell. There you go. JulleII T92 is dead. A complete and utter coincidence I ran into him on the day I picked out his replay to feature in a video. But the other reason I wanted to put this video out today is they're both light tanks, but they're both going to be on the same map. It's Malinovka, and as you know, this is probably one of the best light tank maps left in the game. But this is not the standard map. This is Encounter, and Encounter is a slightly different animal because, you know, when you're playing standard, you know, you've got the usual scouting positions. You spawn in the north, and then you can use the bushes down here. You can use the bushes directly in front of me here to spot enemy tanks, so you can work your way down to these bushes. If you spawn in the south, again, you can move up this trench. You can use bushes. You can use the bush at the back here. That's directly in front of the camera. It's going to take too long to get there. Or you can even try and push up here very aggressively and get into those bushes. So, you know, you've got the bushes over in the middle of the map that you can also drive straight from cap down into those bushes and try and get some spots. But that's the standard mode, and I think most people would realize or know how to play scouts on standard mode. But this is Encounter. This is Encounter. And Encounter is a completely different animal when it comes to scouting on Malinovka. And what you're going to see is both players playing their tanks to its strengths, and using probably one of the most important scouting positions in the game, and that is this ridge right here. So JulleII is going to be spawning up there. He's going to be coming down here. Now what this does is it gives you, this is a ridge, it gives you protection, but it also allows you to spot enemy tanks in the forest, enemy tanks moving up to the ridge. You get a lot of spots, a lot of assistance damage. If you're a little bit cheeky and you poke the ridge, you can spot tanks moving down towards the usual camping positions, maybe in these bushes or these bushes here. You'll spot TDs that are trying to use this ridge and these bushes here to get shots across. So from the north, this is an extremely important position. But another reason, although it isn't featured in this particular game, is another reason this position is important is that it counters one of the strongest enemy positions that usually medium tanks or light tanks used to take, or like to take, which is they like to spawn over here, they like to come down here into the water, they'll move across, and you know how awkward and how difficult it is to dig a tank out of this position. But so they come up here, they start spotting your friendlies moving up the ridge, they start spotting people camping here, they push here, spot players camping in the back there. So this is an extremely strong position for tanks that have decent turret armor, good view range, and good mobility that can get here quite good or quite fast. But this position again is a good counter. So not only are you going to be doing your scouting role here, but you can actually counter, as you can see, by using this position here, you can actually counter anyone who decides to come up here. So there's a couple of reasons why you might want to come here in a light tank. Now, it is dangerous because you are quite exposed, and when tanks start to get up to the ridge, they can start getting shots down here. But there's a couple of reasons to come down here. As I say, you can scout, and you can also counter anyone who comes into this position. So that's what we're going to see JulleII do in this particular game. So let's go. So JulleII is starting off, and the Type 64, as I say, I do love this tank. It's not the best crew trainer for Chinese light tanks, but it will train all crew members. You're just going to have an extra radio operator because it's based on the Hellcat. But you'll see that JulleII has charged straight down, and he's getting into a very, very aggressive position. And there's a third reason. There is a third reason you want to come down to this ridge, because you counter enemy scouts using this ridge. So it is also a good position for enemy scouts. And as you can see, Type 64 is spotted. Type 64 is taking fire. JulleII is staying on the move. And he's starting to do a little bit of damage, but he's mainly here to get spots. You can see on the right-hand side how much spotting he's doing. Tanks he's spotted, assistance damage he's doing to tanks he's spotted. So enemy tanks have dropped off the radar. He pushes forward, starts to get spots again, respots the Type 62. And he really, really wants someone or needs someone to take out that... Oh, it's a Type 64, an enemy Type 64. It would be very, very helpful if someone could take out that Type 64, but it's not happening just yet because... both of these light tanks are countering each other, and as I say, he's just avoided a shot there. Someone up on the ridge is able to get shots down, and that is the one danger of being counter-scouted in this position. But thankfully, an IS on his team has taken out that Type 64, and now JulleII is free to actually just sit up here. He's using bushes, but it's not a very effective bush because a lot of his tank is exposed. He's trying to hide as much of his tank as possible, but better than nothing, I suppose. But look at all of these spots. He spotted the M6, the OI. He's just gotten some assistance damage on the M6. And a lot of tanks still camping down in the enemy spawn at E0, and now they are taking fire. He's just gotten assistance damage for the T20. So this is a very, very important position. You've just got to be careful. Try not to die here very, very early. And the longer the game goes on, as I say, scouts become more and more dangerous. But JulleII is going for shots here. A little bit iffy. A little bit iffy. He could have been spotted, but again, no enemy tanks have been spotted further south along the 7 line. So I think JulleII is banking on the fact that he is out of view range. A lot of tanks on the enemy team have poor view range. So that IS has poor view range. KV-85 has poor view range. So he's banking on the fact that the enemy heavies, and there are a lot of them, don't have the view range to spot him firing in this position. This M6 does have decent view range. SU-152, not quite so much, but a little bit unlucky not to get a shot into the lower glacis. And he bounces on the lower glacis of the SU-152, but he's got a rate of fire that's quick enough to take him out. Now there's a T20, and again, if you can pen enemy tanks, if you're in a higher tier game, unfortunately the penetration on this gun is going to let you down, but if you can pen enemy tanks, it's got a decent rate of fire. My only issue ever with the Type 64 is the fact you tend to run out of ammunition. If you have to do a lot of damage in a game and a lot of carrying, unfortunately you don't have that much ammunition. But you can see that it is a 76mm as soon as it pops up. 76mm, just like the Hellcat, and 128mm of penetration, 115 damage. So JulleII did get spotted, but that's because enemy tanks are capping. He probably could have gone back to get spots on those guys earlier. Not an accurate gun for taking snapshots, but it's okay. There are worse guns. He moves up, spots the M6 again. His team are still being capped. A T-34-100 has moved up to support, but he's just going to try... Oh, cap has been reset. So there are 2 tanks in the enemy cap, according to the cap counter. And JulleII is moving up. Now this is a little bit dangerous because even though most of the enemy tanks have been spotted, he is exposing himself to shots from the left-hand side by moving up and over the ridge. But what he's trying to do, he's got to try and get spots. Oh, there we go, M6. He knew the M6 was there. M6 is not asleep. He takes the first damage of this game and he moves back into cover, but not quickly enough. And as I say, that is the problem with poking the ridge. He decided to poke in order to get shots, but he's decided that no, he's a one-hit kill now. There's absolutely no point No point in trying to poke the ridge to reset again, so he's relocating. So he's not going to play with his 100 hit points. He's relocating to try and get shots down into the middle. A little bit dangerous, moving out into the corner, or out into the open, and he gets very, very lucky. Very, very lucky. Both the T20 and the T43 miss. I don't know why he moved into the open. It was obvious he was going to be within view range of those tanks, but now he's playing a lot more carefully. He's recovered. He's only showing the minimum amount of his tank. He's poked out, he's reset the cap again, going to try and shoot the T20. No, he's moving through the open, but he gets down into the lower ground, so he should be fairly safe from the T20. But I think what JulleII is seeing now is that there is an IS and an SU-152 who are in a standoff down in J5. Now, there's nothing a light tank likes more than a forward-facing TD that has isolated himself. So this IS is a one-hit kill, potentially, depending on the gun the SU-152 is using. The T20 is still capping, but there's plenty of time. It isn't counter, and that means that there's 2 minutes and 20 seconds left before you need to start worrying about resetting. So JulleII is moving across the open. Again, a little bit risky, especially if that T20 is awake. But he's going to ambush this SU-152. Now, he hasn't been spotted yet, which means he should be able to use his speed and mobility maybe to get around to the side of the SU-152 before the traverse speed gets him into trouble. And there we go. He's found the isolated TD, and this is what light tanks love. Now, again, don't know if sitting in the open, that T20 is still a danger, but JulleII is just feasting on that SU-152. And the score is 12-9, so the whole map has opened up now. There's RT in play that hasn't been spotted. There's a M6 that's north. RT's just gone for a shot. We know where the T20 is, so JulleII knows where every enemy tank is, and it's very likely RT's going to be sitting in this corner, so he's going in for the kill. He's only got 100 hit points. About the only danger he's in is if RT shotguns him in the face, or if the T20 is completely aware and has turned around and is aiming this direction. But JulleII has spotted the M44. Gets one shot in. This is his last shot of standard AP. Unfortunately, now he's out of AP. He has to use premium. Takes out the M44 for kill number 3. He's on 1800 damage. The M6 in the north has gone down, and that just leaves the T20. So IS spots him in the distance. JulleII moves up, but not quick enough to get a final shot in. So a very, very tidy game there from JulleII. He was using the spot in, I think it's D7 to great effect. Counter-scouted enemy scouts. No one came up through the water, so he didn't have to worry about that, but he got a lot of spotting, a lot of damage done, and a lot of assistance damage done. It was an ace tanker, picked up scout medal, and he picked up patrol duty, and I love light tank games where I pick up both medals. It means I've done my job. So JulleII finished top on XP with an absolutely huge 1627 base XP. Very, very nice. 1800 damage done with 3 kills. He fired 27, hit 22, so it wasn't as if he was passive spotting. He was doing his passive spotting when he needed to, he was doing his active spotting when he needed to, and he was damage dealing when he felt it was safe. Now, it wasn't a perfect game, a couple of minor mistakes made, he lost some health, maybe he didn't need to, and as a result he was almost one-hit killed by a couple of tanks, but he recovered, and it was just a very, very good game in the end, showing off just how important it is to get a light tank down into that early ridge, that early spotting position. So as well as the 2 or 1.8k damage he did, he also did 4k assistance damage, spotting damage. He spotted 13. He spotted almost the entire enemy team from that position down in the along that ridge, and just 12 base defense points as well. He earned 84,000 credits with a premium account, and this is why I say if you're good in light tanks and you enjoy light tanks, I think the Type 64 is one of the best value for money premium tanks in the game, because you can have big games in it and you can earn a lot of credits in it. The credit earning potential for this tank, if you know how to play it and you know how to play it well, is equally as good as tier 7 or even some tier 8 tanks, providing you have a good game. So really well played, JulleII. Next up, we've got frigging F in the T71, the Tier 7 American light tank. Although it's one of the two, the Bulldog is the other one. There's also a Bulldog on frigging F's team. But the T71 is in-game, to all intents and purposes, probably a little bit weaker than the Bulldog in most aspects. But the main reason for the video today is not only is it two light tank drivers, but it's mainly to highlight how effective that Ridge at D7 is. Because what you're going to see is, again, this is encounter. It's scouting from the other side, so it is scouting on Malinovka in an encounter game, and it has exactly the same effect. So you spawn in the forest, you move across, and you're moving into exactly the same position, because this corner here, or this ridge here, will allow you can even use the bushes if you need to, or use the bushes a little bit further back if you've got very, very good view range. But you can also use this ridge for cover. You can spot enemy tanks that are moving down towards the ridge here, or down into this area here. You can spot enemy tanks that are camping around the church, or whatever it is there. You can also spot enemy tanks that are moving up onto the high ground along the A line for your team to shoot up at. So it's another very aggressive spotting position. And like the other side, you've got the ridge. It's not as pronounced, so you are in a little bit more danger from enemy tanks. If you do get spotted, enemy tanks are going to be able to shoot down at you, probably a little bit more easily than they can if you're scouting from the other side. But you're going to be spotting from here. You can be countered from here, but you're also going to be countering any enemy light tanks that decide to move up on the other side of the ridge. So you're counter scouting and you're scouting at the same time. And just like the other side of this ridge, what enemy tanks can do, again, is be very aggressive, push down into the water, try and push up into this area to try and get early spots, and it can be quite difficult to dig enemy tanks out of this position because they're poking up, they're spotting your tanks in the forest. But once again, what this ridge allows you to do, or this position allows you to do, is it allows you to counter that, because when they poke up, you could shoot down at them. So again, it's a very versatile position, and it plays almost exactly the same way as it does from the other side. It's almost completely balanced. So frigging F is here in the T71. As I say, there's a Bulldog on his team, and the Bulldog, to all intents and purposes, is better in almost every single way. But just a couple of interesting insights is the T71, because it's called T, it means that it was a prototype. Basically, American tanks, they're either T or they're M. So if they're M, it means model. So M41 means model 41. It means it was a production tank. T in an American tank name means a prototype, or it means a test or a trial tank. So the T71 was a prototype, and it goes for all the other tanks as well. So for example, before the T71, you've got the T37, and the T37 was a prototype tank. It was a testbed tank for the Bulldog. So up till the end of World War II, the main American light tank was the Chaffee, the M22 Chaffee, I believe it was. So you had the Chaffee, which was a model, but it was considered undergunned. So after World War II, coming up towards the late 1940s, the Americans wanted to upgun their light tanks. So they started work on the Bulldog, and they did that by developing a testbed called the T37. And the fact it's T37 means it never made it to production, but it was used as a successful testbed for testing things like guns and rangefinders that eventually led to the M41 Bulldog. But M41 Bulldog came into being around 1951. But it wasn't without its problems. The Bulldog was extremely noisy. The engine in the Bulldog was extremely noisy, which kind of defeats the purpose for a light tank that was designed for reconnaissance. Now, it did have a much, much bigger gun, but being noisy was one of the problems the Bulldog had. Another problem the Bulldog had at the beginning of the 1950s was it was very, very fuel inefficient. It basically drank fuel, so it was very, very hard to keep resupplied. It ran out of fuel very, very quickly. Another issue the Bulldog had. And then in addition to that, it was having teething problems. It was having, it came onto the scene, it was active in Korea, but it just had a lot of problems, particularly with a new rangefinder that was put on the tank. So the Bulldog was having a lot of teething problems, and the Americans decided, you know what, let's see if we can find maybe a alternative to the Bulldog. So they went back to the drawing board, and they came up with a list of requirements for a new American light tank. Now, what's very interesting is that the requirements the Americans wanted were very, very similar to the requirements the French government wanted for the new line of AMX tanks, which were being developed at the same time in 1951, 52, and 53, which was that the tanks were going to be light, that they had to be suitable for air transport, which was something the Bulldog wasn't. The Bulldog was just a little bit too heavy for easy air transport. Couldn't get to the hot zones quickly enough. So T71 was one of the light tanks that was designed to kind of meet those requirements. It needed to be a light tank that was fast, it needed to be light, and it needed to have decent firepower compared to the Chaffee. So the T71 basically was designed around 1953, and that is exactly the same time as the AMX tanks were being developed, and you could see a lot of similarities. Not only were they being built for the same reason, but the similarities are also evident in the fact it has an oscillating turret. Now, basically only America and France were experimenting with the oscillating turret around that time. It also, although the T71 was originally supposed to come with a 90mm, in order to meet the requirements that it was going to be a tank light enough for air transport, they decided to remove the 90mm and give it a 76mm instead. So it lightened the tank. But the benefit, even though the firepower was taken away due to the fact it wasn't a 90mm, the fact it was using a 76mm gave the Americans the opportunity to put an autoloader on the tank. So they maintained firepower through the autoloader as opposed to having just a single fire 90mm. So it was very, very similar to the French tanks, the AMX French tanks that were being developed at exactly the same time. So when it basically was proposed, there was a wooden mock-up. It never even made it to prototype. It was basically a wooden mock-up. So it had firepower, it was light, it was quick, it was quite small, but the only issue the main reason, according to sources, that the tank wasn't developed further was the fact that it only had 25mm of armor all round, and which is ironic because it met the requirement that it was light enough for air transport, but even though it was a light tank that fulfilled pretty much all the requirements that were asked of it, it was never developed any further because the powers that be decided that it just wasn't heavily armored enough. So as a result, it never made it past that wooden mock-up. It was scrapped, although the designs all still exist, and the Bulldog was, even though this tank was designed to replace the Bulldog, or at least be a better alternative to the Bulldog ended up working out its teething problems and went on to be the main light tank throughout the 1950s and 60s for the Americans. But anyway, let's get back to this. We're here with frigging F on Encounter on Malinovka, which is the whole point of this video today. And he, again, is going to be very aggressive, so he's going to go up to D7, he's going to try and counter enemy scouts, or at least initially. Eventually he's going to get there. So he's spotted an AMX CDC moving in, but he's gotten spotted. He has gotten spotted now. This is dangerous. He's got to get out of there very quickly. But yeah, I think the T71 is still a great little tank. It is one of my favorite tanks, even though I will admit the Bulldog is better in most aspects. I still absolutely love playing the T71. So eventually he's moving up to the D7 area. Now he was spotted again. He's trying to move erratically, not to make himself an easy target. He's getting quite a few spots. He's spotted both OIs on the enemy team. Now he's spotted the Jagdpanther and the AMX 1375, so he is countering an AMX 1375 in D7. But you could see that frigging F isn't one for passive spotting. He is moving up, he's active spotting, he's shooting his gun, he doesn't mind if enemy tanks are seeing him. And at the same time, he is countering that AMX 1375 that's on the other side of that ridge at D7. So he's on a reload. You can see that the reload is a lot quicker than it is on the Bulldog. Can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but the downside to having a faster reload is you only carry 6 shells in your autoloader. But enemy Chaffee there. Oh, and a tank behind him has just the M41 Bulldog has just taken a huge hit. That had to have been RT, but you can see that frigging F is actually reversing up into position right now so that he can accelerate away as soon as he's been spotted. So when you're in a light tank and you've got no armor, there's really no point in the usual keep your frontal armor to the enemy, because your frontal armor is your toughest armor. But again, he's taking on the Chaffee. Unfortunately, that Bulldog decided to move down into the water and as a result got killed by the Chaffee. Chaffee is still alive, but I think Freaking F has decided that maybe the D7 position is not quite effective anymore. There's a CDC, there's an M4A1 Revolurize. So he's kind of being careful. He doesn't want to move up into that position quite yet, or yet again, I should say. English, it's hard, guys. But Cromwell Bees have gone up the other flank, which means that now the Centurion has gone back to support him, and Frigging F can move up to try and do some more spotting. He spotted another Carnarvon. There's the M4A1 Revolurize. He's just gotten spotted, but he's going to work here. And again, this is dangerous. He backs away. Maybe took one shot too many there and got a little bit lucky. But the point is, he hasn't taken any damage whatsoever. And it looks like the enemy teams that the enemy tanks that went back to defend their arty have actually defended arty. That Lorraine 15550 that was spotted is still alive. Both Cromwell Bees are dead. So pretty much, other than a VK2801 and an SU152, most of the rest of the team, Frigging F's team, are on the hill. But Frigging F is pushing up because he knows the enemy tanks went back to defend arty. He's pushing up to try and get spots to see if they're coming back into position. This part of the map is clear, and it looks like the CDC, Carnarvon, and OI are all advancing down the 1-2 lines. So Frigging F is able to move up, and he's got side shots on the OI. And unfortunately, he needs to hit above the spaced armor, bounces his first one, second one is blind, hangs around for another shot, and goes for a reload. But now his team have won the hill. It's pretty obvious that most of the enemy tanks are either down in the corner in A1, A2, or they're advancing across the map. Enemy M41 Bulldog has taken on the VK2801 down in J5 and has killed him. But again, Frigging F just doing his job. He's the most forward advanced tank on his team, spotting enemy tanks for his team. OI gets hit by arty, and Frigging F gets the assistance damage. Getting a little bit unlucky with some of these shots on the M4A1 Revolurize. But yeah, very, very nice damage. He managed to do 950 damage to that M4A1. And once again, he's on a reload, he's relocating, he wants to get spots for these tanks coming down off the hill. Still 2 arty in play. There's an M4043 that hasn't been spotted, and that Lorraine we know was last down in this corner. So again, he's going to move forward, be the one to try and get spots for the tanks coming down off the hill. CDC, in the meantime, in the south is going to work, has killed arty. But Frigging F is focused on enemy arty, spots the M43. 1, 2, gets behind him, well played, takes him out. In the meantime, he spotted the OI in the background, and Super Pershing takes out the OI. So we know now, again according to the minimap, Carnarvon, CDC, Centurion were all last spotted going down the 1-2 lines. We know that there is an M41 Bulldog down there as well. So Frigging F, even though he's spotted, there has to be an enemy arty here. There he is. But Frigging F is on a reload, and he decides he needs to get south. He could have hung around, he could have taken a shot, but as you can see, he was on a reload, and by the time he reloaded, unfortunately, that arty would have been killed. So he's moving up, gets a nice shot into the AMX CDC. But now Frigging F is in a position to do flanking, because we know that all the enemy tanks were last spotted heading south. They are putting pressure on friendly south. The KV-4 just goes down, and Frigging F is able to move up, use speed, use maneuverability, get to the rear of enemy tanks. But the only thing that maybe Frigging F is worried about is that Carnarvon, because the Carnarvon hasn't been spotted in some time. The other tanks are all down here. So he's advancing across the open, using bush cover where he can. And he's got lots of support, so once again, he's playing on the front line. He's trying to get the tanks behind him spots. And finally the Carnarvon has been spotted, so he puts a building between himself and the CDC and Bulldog, moves up, goes to work on the Carnarvon, needs to shoot through the fence in order to get an outline. But I probably would have been tracking the Carnarvon. I would have been going for track shots there that would have done damage, tracked him in place. But it looks like Frigging F is trying to get an engine fire by putting shots into the engine. So even though he carries enough for 3 clips of premium ammo on the T71, he hasn't actually had to switch to premium ammo or fire any in this game. He's got side shots on the Carnarvon, he's almost reloaded, and this is where the T71 can be so dangerous. There's 1 kill, and he can start working on the CDC, who gets behind the wreck of the Centurion. Somehow a friendly Centurion has just turned blue. No idea how that happened. But Frigging F decides to go for another reload. And that dangerous CDC, best player on the enemy team, is still hanging around at the back of the map. You can see the CDC is relocating, but Frigging F is focused on this Carnarvon. It's a one-hit kill if he could take him out. And he can. Oh well, no, he didn't. Unfortunately, someone else takes him out, but that just leaves the CDC on the enemy team. 1 CDC left on the enemy team. Frigging F still has 3 shots left. He's put 2 in, 3 in. Another shot in. And the CDC gets into cover behind buildings. So Frigging F going for another reload, but the problem is he's only got 4 shots left. CDC is advancing. I don't think Frigging F realized the CDC has just advanced, but he's only got 4 shots left in his clip of regular APCR. The T71 does show fire APCR standard. I got accused of gold spamming by an enemy bulldog, actually. It was an enemy bulldog who was also firing APCR recently, who didn't realize it was standard even though he was driving exactly the same tank. It's standard on these tanks. So Frigging F is moving across, hoping to spot the CDC. Last time it looked as if the CDC was either down the dip here or moving into the forest. But I don't think Frigging F realized just how quick the CDC can be. So they've rescued this game. Frigging F is on 3.5k damage in a T71. He's on full health, has not lost any health, and look how quick the CDC is. He is completely flanked around the map and takes out an enemy or a friendly OI. Yeah, Frigging F in chat is going, wow. Yeah, CDC is so fast, especially if you lose sight of it. But Frigging F is moving in, and this is why you need to retain your hit points. This is why you need to save your hit points in light tanks. It means that Frigging F can go up and he can actually afford to take 3 or 4, probably 4 hits. 4 hits from the CDC, and he only needs to hit the CDC 3 times or possibly 4 in order to kill him. So really important to try and stay safe at the beginning. Don't suicide scout. Keep your hit points. You become far more dangerous the longer the game goes on. So it's going to be quite difficult tracking down the CDC. I imagine the CDC's plan is to possibly, there's still 5 minutes left of this game, is to possibly try and isolate the Super Pershing or find the Super Pershing, take him out. But Frigging F is having none of that. He's managed to chase the CDC down. CDC is trying to go up the hill, or was until he was spotted. And this is where Frigging F can basically just open up, take hits. He's got lots of hit points. Gets 3 shots in, bounces his 3rd, 4th one in. It is going to take 4 shots. There we go. Very, very good result. 4k damage in the T71. And once again, Frigging F using that ridge down in D7, just like the first game, is very, very important in an encounter game to get someone down there. Not only to get spots and not only to get assistance damage, but also to counter enemy scouts that are also using the same position. So Frigging F picked up an ace. He also picked up Patrol Duty, Confederate, High Caliber, and Tank Sniper. No Scout medal this time round, but he got enough medals to make up for that. So he finished top on XP with an absolutely huge, look at this guys, an absolutely huge 1969. This is base XP, absolutely huge game, amazing game, and look at the amount of damage he did. So XVM recorded almost 4k damage, but he ended up getting 4.6k damage done, so he did 600 damage roughly with blind shots. I imagine it was possibly on those shots on the OI, but yeah, incredibly high damage game, incredibly high XP game, absolutely amazing job in the T71. Well done, Frigging F. 44 shots fired, 39 hits, and 32 penetrations. And I remember the T71 is considered a tank that isn't as strong as the Bulldog, but I still love the T71. I think it's a great little tank. He spotted 6, damaged 9, destroyed 3, did 3,000 assistance damage. Not quite as much assistance damage as in the first game, but still a really high total. And when you consider he did almost 4.6k damage and 3k assistance assistance damage. Incredible game. And he earned money. He earned credits. No premium ammo fired in that game until the very... Well, actually, I don't think he fired any. But he earned 33,500 credits with a premium account. Absolutely amazing game. Wasn't his first game of the day, 3,000 XP overall, but huge game in the T71. Congratulations, frigging F. That is Malinovka encounter mode, and if a lot of you guys are wondering how to play your light tanks, remember, that ridge at D7, incredibly important. You can counter tanks that go down into the river, you can counter scout enemy scouts that are trying to use the same position, and on top of that, you get to do some spotting, and you get to get a lot of assistance damage at the same time. I want to thank frigging F, and I want to thank JulleII for sending those replays in. I'm happy to finally get them up on the channel, and as per usual, if you leave a comment on this video, you're going to be in with a chance of winning some Steam keys. I'm going to give away 2 games with this particular video. No idea off the top of my head what they're going to be, but once again, thank you guys for sending those replays in. I hope you guys at home enjoyed watching them, and I'll see you next time.